This video is going to be looking at the GTA Online San Andreas Mercenaries DLC piece by piece, scene by scene, and just grasping whatever little bits of info I can get from it. If you want to just watch the trailer itself properly, go ahead and check out their newswire. Watch the trailer for GTA Online San Andreas Mercenaries, June 6th, 2023. That's not what I'm doing here though. I'm also not reading this as it's nothing new information wise. I'm just going to be grasping whatever I can from this. So, right away in the thumbnail, we can see a few things. We can see our new jet here, the F-35, a lot of people are calling it. Also, it has been said that it has elements of the F-22, similar plane really, and a few others as well. Nothing really new to see there. Here we see the Avenger firing its new weapons. That looks like two pretty chunky rockets to me. We have the new gun here being held. I think it might be called a TMP 9 or another number. TMP anyway. It's a new submachine gun. We have a new car here. I think this is another new car. I mistook it for the trophy truck, but I was swiftly corrected by my subscribers. Now here you see something different altogether. Well, somewhat. This is an existing helicopter called the Canada. It arrived maybe in the last DLC or the one before that, but it didn't have any weapons. This one, on the other hand, does. You can see two different types of weapons on this. First of all, you have to write off this little chunky part here. I thought that was part of this, which it isn't. It's a bit of an optical illusion. That is actually just the tail. um, so you have missile pods here. That anyone's guess as to how those work. I would imagine probably just similar to the Hunter or a Cooler, though. Unless they're going with, wildly different types of missiles, but we'll see. And then we have these things. It's quite hard to tell, especially as the image is pretty small. But I think those are either some kind of fuel tanks, perhaps, or maybe some wing mounted guns. They don't look like what you'd typically expect from an attack helicopter. But the guns can come in this form on helicopters sometimes. Really hard to say. It could even be a form of rocket pod. There is a tiny little bit on the front. I can't really pinpoint it at this size, but it looks a bit like the end of a gun to me. I'm picturing these as some sort of gun pods and homing missiles. Anyway, why don't we stop looking at the thumbnail? But yeah, even that has a lot of stuff to take. Let's look at the trailer. Okay, first scene. Right away, you have a view of two new aircraft here. Actually, four new vehicles. This car is new. I'm pretty sure this is new. But on this channel here, we're interested in the aircraft. You have a Beagle here. This is a plane from GTA San Andreas. It was called the Beagle in that. I don't know what its real life counterpart would be called. Nothing massively exciting for most players. You can't see any weapons there. Just a propeller plane. Again, here we have the armed Canada. I'm kind of curious whether or not these weapons are ones that you can just add on to any Canada, or whether this is a separate variant in of itself. I think it will be the latter, but I think they'd be missing a trick if they didn't add more customization for helicopters in general, adding different weapon types, being able to swap them out in hangars. I think that could really, it could deepen things a little, mix things up. But I have a feeling they're not doing that, and this is just its own variant. Anyway, you don't get much of a better look at the weapons here. They really are. Your best look is actually in artwork for the trailer. Again, what can I say? My guess would be homing missiles and maybe some kind of gun pod, if anything. You really can't see it very well here. Now this, a lot of my subscribers were wondering which plane this was. Well, more than anyone, I was. And we sort of guessed it to be a Rogue, particularly from these intakes here. I'm pretty sure that only the Rogue had those. I can't see any new weapons or features on this. Can't remember if this was an existing paint job or not, or library. Here we see three aircraft and the shadows of some of our characters. This one, I think, could be the Howard. It's clearly some kind of propeller plane. Can't see weapons added on. I'm going to guess that that's the Howard, an existing plane. This one's very distinctive. This is the Molotov. I don't see weapons on it. This was one that you could add them to anyway. Nothing particularly special. Rocket pods to fire homing missiles. What's new here is that you've got the Avenger. This was not an aircraft that you could store in here before. And if you look closely, you can see this has new rocket pods, which they have shown previously. It's still not clear how exactly these work, if they're fired by the pilot, which I would imagine they are. It's also not clear whether these fire homing missiles, unguided rockets, who knows. That is the name of our DLC, GTA Online San Andreas Mercenaries. This is a look at the inside of the Avenger, which has been changed up a bit. I've heard you can customize it, and, well, of course, we've seen those rocket pods. But they didn't mention this previously. This looks like the thruster jetpack. So it looks like you can store your thruster in this now. Now, this has some connotations that you might not really see at first. A lot of these vehicles, like the Kasatka, the MOC, the Terabyte, when they can store a vehicle inside them, that means that you can call this vehicle from the interaction menu. So there's a good chance, I would say, that we can call up our thruster from the interaction menu now, just on its own. That could be a lot faster, a lot less, a lot more convenient than it has been so far. So far, you have to call up the mechanic on your phone, and it can get quite awkward. Now, this looks like we can store it here, which you would imagine means you can probably call it up here as well. Whether you can add any new upgrades to it, who knows? This looks like the new terminal where we'll access some of the missions, but you can't really see much beyond that. These seats have always been here. Those are for the existing guns, which are no joke. They're very long-range, explosive guns. They have some travel time and they're not very fast firing, but they will reach for miles. Here we have the Avenger again, unleashing some kind of very powerful explosive on this boat. This unlucky boat. I'm not sure what it fired. Let's try and get a better look. This to me looks possibly staged. Seems that the moment the scene comes in, it's already blowing up. And I can't see a lot going on here, maybe a slight bit of a flash. I think that this explosion is staged. I can't see what could have been done to it to have an explosion that big. I don't think a bomb's been dropped on it. I imagine that's staged. And the other one just seems to blow up out of nowhere with a giant explosion. Here we have the Avenger flying through. You've got a better look at some of these weapons here. I see 4 of them. They're kind of mirrored on each side. These look like they could be different for each. Perhaps guided missiles and unguided missiles? Or maybe something different altogether. Let's see if we can get a better look. Oh, that's as close as we get. This is another shot from the inside. This again, though, is just an existing control surface as far as I can tell. It simply controls the long-range guns. This looks like a combat MG or maybe a rifle. Hard to say. Nothing really new to look at here, but I can tell. I'm pretty sure this has always been possible to fire the gun out of the back of a van like that. I'm also fairly sure this van has already been in the game for a while. Again, a very staged looking explosion. What has caused this massive explosion? I suppose we're meant to expect that this gun has, but I can't see how that would happen in game. So I get the feeling a lot of these are staged. And by stage, of course, the whole trailer is staged in a sense. I mean, yeah, explosions are happening that probably aren't going to happen when you're playing. Because why this is so big, God knows. I mean, look at that. That's the explosions are not that big from a single car in this game, especially not from being shot with a machine gun. You see a laser swooping here. I didn't see that before. It's an existing jet, nothing new. Weapons all look the same. Here we have the new MP9, I think it is. Correct me if I'm wrong. Being fired here. Seems like it's aimed a lot like a pistol, held a lot like one as well. Not much to say here, really. I don't really know a lot about this gun. We'll see if it uh, contends with the AP pistol or not, but I don't think there's a SMG yet that does. This to me looks like an assault shotgun, perhaps, with that drum magazine. Maybe an MG, the machine gun you get before the combat MG. No, I'm leaning towards assault shotgun with a suppressor on it there. Yeah, that looks just like it actually, now that he's moved it up. Pretty sure these flight helmets are existing ones as well. Okay. This truck, I instantly thought was the trophy truck, which is a similar looking truck to this, but a lot of my subscribers were quick to tell me that this is a different vehicle altogether. I don't really know what it's based off or what it is. The helicopter you see here is the Stealth Annihilator. Currently, it's a pretty unimpressive helicopter, if I'm honest. It has very weak armor. It takes around 5 explosive sniper rounds to blow up, which is only 2 more than the Buzzard. It's only 1 missile, or I assume 1 railgun shot. It, yeah, it's not very strong. It's not very fast either. It's quite slow. The weapon loadout is almost identical to the Akula, an existing stealth helicopter that is faster and stronger, only it doesn't have bombs on it. So you're really I hate to bash it so much, but this is currently a pretty poor helicopter. I'd like to think they're hinting that they might buff it or offer some kind of upgrades for it, but I'm not really I'm not very hopeful. They're not really showing much of it. I will say one strength it has though is that it has a lower hitbox compared to a lot of other helicopters. The hitbox is a part of a helicopter where missiles lock on, and in most helicopters it's dead in the center, which makes it quite hard to dodge missiles. With it lower down, it the missiles tend to pass underneath it. Still, it is not a great helicopter. You're much better off with a stealth and a cooler rather. It's quite nice looking, but that's about it. And we see it flying off to the aircraft carrier. We've been on this before. I guess we'll be going to it again with this, I imagine. Maybe stealing some new planes again. Here we have another shot of inside the newly upgraded Avenger. These, again, are just existing terminals as far as I can tell. This looks like the new terminal, where presumably you access new missions from. Maybe even a new type of business, who can tell? I'm leaning towards new missions, so you can't really see a lot. This looks like it says Merryweather Security, but that's about all I can tell. I can see part of a map. Not sure what that is. And this looks like some kind of graph, maybe a radar type thing. Here we have the Avenger blowing things up. I would assume that these explosions here have come from the Avengers' existing guns, as these look like they're locked facing forwards to my eye. And of course, this is directly underneath it. Although the bomb bay is open, so it could be using bombs here, which don't look especially big, if I'm honest. Not much else I can see to look at here, really. Oh, and that looks a bit bigger, but who can tell if it's staged or not? Now, these look absolutely huge, and the plane that's causing all of this is an Alkonos dropping them from overhead. Uh, part of me, you see, I really think that a lot of these aircraft should have much bigger bombs. At the moment, they all share the same size of bomb, regardless of the aircraft, which is stupid, in my opinion, to put it bluntly. Take the Starling. Tiny, tiny, agile little aircraft. It can swoop in right up much closer than any other aircraft can and still be fairly safe as it's a difficult target. That has the same size bombs as the Bombushka, the Alkonos, and the Volatile, I think they called it. There's a few Volata type things. Um, Clearly, those three planes are much bigger targets than the Starling. They can't just swoop in really close, or they'll crash, or they'll be a massive target that is. It's just you're gonna die basically. So I think these should have much bigger bombs, and they do look much bigger here. So a big part of me is, saying, hey, maybe they've buffed bombs. But then I look at all the other unnaturally huge explosions in this trailer, and that tells me that these are probably just staged. Probably put in with some kind of development tools of theirs rather than actual explosions from the bombs. On a side note, you have another view of the new helicopter here, the armed Canada. It's quite out of focus though, and you really can't see any new details here that you couldn't there. Different paint job, maybe. That looks like a barracks, an existing truck. Again, enormous explosions and a huge chain of them from this. As something tells me, I don't know. I want to think that those are buffed, but I feel like we won't be getting what's shown here. We have a few cars. I think they are existing ones. This struck me as quite odd. Here we see a Savage without its rotor blades on. It could be a visual glitch, although I can't really see them having that in a trailer, to be honest. Especially not when it's fairly in focus, actually, if you pause it like this. It could be that it has somehow already been destroyed, but it looks off. It doesn't look right like that. And I feel like they would have wanted to make it look right in a trailer like this. Maybe I'm giving them too much credit. Maybe it just glitched out a bit and there it is without its blades and they didn't bother. My thinking, though, is that perhaps it's being worked on and that's why the blades are off. Who can tell? On a side note, I'd really like them to do something with the Savage. It's had a very bumpy life, all of its history. It finally got buffed around Smuggler's Run, that update. A minor buff, it still has pretty weak armor, very susceptible to having its engine smoke, which will kill it pretty quickly after that. It is it's difficult to dodge missiles with, as it's quite, shall we say, thick, and it is yeah, I just feel like it needs a buff and maybe some new weapon types or countermeasure types even. It doesn't have any countermeasures as it is, unlike a lot of the new aircraft. Okay, here we have another shot. You can see another helicopter here. Now, my first thought when I first saw that was that it might be a Viper or something like that. Just taking a brief look at that, it kind of looked a bit like it, the cockpit from this angle. But pretty quickly I started thinking, nah, I think this is just the Canada again, which it probably is. Which is alright, it's still a new type of helicopter, armed one at least. It's a shame as it's quite a clear shot. You would imagine we'd get a pretty good look at the weapons here, but there's also a lot of contrast with blacks here, and it just is, you can't really see it properly. You really get a sense of how big these explosions are. I would love it if they made this plane drop bombs that big, because this thing is huge. I feel like this is just a stage set up, though, that these are not from the bombs it's dropping, that they have been activated somehow with some kind of development tools. You really can't overstate the size of this thing. It is a massive target. It is, oh, I don't have the words for it. It is a huge, huge plane, put it that way. And it's clearly meant for high altitude bombing as well, as it goes into stealth mode when it's high up enough, which takes it completely off the map. Problem is, you're trying to bomb from that high up, and you're dropping tiny little bombs that have a small blast radius. Takes ages for them to reach down. It's just not very viable. Not to mention that there is a glitch where bombs just fall straight through the ground at high altitudes, so that kind of gets in the way somewhat. Maybe they'll fix that. Like, just having them make some bigger bombs would be a good start, but I can't see it happening if I'm honest. This is the sort of thing I'd like, proper big bombs. There we go, like that. Aha! This is the new jet. Mostly looks like an F-35 with elements of other planes as well. As you can see, it has vertical takeoff and landing abilities, also known as VTOL. Can't really see any other weapons here. I think that the machine guns are mounted on top of it. There was another shot in a different thing where they looked like they were. The wheels are here. They seem to be going up with it. I'm not sure if that is the case. At any rate, it is confirmed that it has VTOL. And you can see it has an animation for it moving in place. And you do see the wheels going in there. Here we have a few more of them all in formation. Yeah, I think the machine guns are mounted about there on the wings. It's hard to get the proper perspective. We still don't see any missiles on it. I would imagine that those come out maybe, or maybe they are added on to the wings at a later date in the hangar. A lot of the Smuggler's Run planes are like that. They can look quite different without their missiles attached, and then you can do it as a customization later on. You can get a pretty good idea of the outline of them there. Quite a distinctive plane. Okay, here we have the inside of that, as you can tell by this diagram here, which mentions EXER mode. I don't know what that is. I would guess that it's perhaps, maybe it has stealth mode, as the plane itself, the F-35, is known for those kind of capabilities as well as VTOL. So my guess would be that it can do that. Uh, Hard to say for sure, though. Probably will. Now, there's a few things here. Right away, your eyes might be drawn to all this. It clearly has some form of explosive cannons on it. They are actually being fired quite slowly, though, I think, unless it's just going really fast and it gives the appearance of a slow fire rate. They also don't seem to blow up the laser in one hit. So they're clearly not the current laser and Hydra cannons that are like a laser beam and destroy everything. A lot of people, hey, that's good, right? But uh, I'm just hoping it's not like the Rogue or the B-11, as those machine guns, those cannons, quote unquote, are really rather poor. They can't kill a person in one hit. Typically, even if it's a direct hit, they just bounce people about. They have a tiny, tiny blast radius. They're just not very good. And they have a very, very slow rate of fire, especially on the B-11. Uh, I am a little disappointed with this, to be honest. But we'll see. Time will tell. Maybe they're not quite like that. Maybe they're a bit of an upgrade. Maybe they at least have a decent fire rate or something. The cannons that they put on the cannon rather that's on the B-11, it just has nothing going for it. The blast radius is tiny, the damage is low, it can't really kill someone, and unless they're really trying to get killed, to be honest, even then it's difficult. So yeah, low damage, tiny blast radius, slow fire rate. It's got to have something. I mean, a jet strafing you should be pretty menacing, in my opinion. And if this is like the B-11's cannon, good luck with that. Hoping it's better than that. Moving on, You can see its different weapons outlined here, and they all seem to have infinite ammo according to the HUD. We have homing missiles, standard missiles, and front cannons. How good those cannons are remains to be seen. This could be entirely staged, by the way. These explosions may not even be coming from the cannons, as strange as that sounds. You see what looks like a parking mode, I think that says. The diagram of a jet. This radar display is nothing new. A few little bits of writing. I think it says something there, although I can't quite read it. It is quite small and I can't zoom in right now. You can see another diagram of a jet here. You can see this does get the job done on this lasered over guns. Here you've got a better view of this diagram. And that to me, I could be wrong, but that looks like that could either be bombs or missiles, these green lines. They look suspiciously in the position where they might be in reality. In reality, the F-35, it kind of opens up its weapons bay and they all come out. That's how it keeps a low profile on radars. Without that, it's more recognizable as a fighter. With that, it's a more unusual shape. So I'm fairly sure it will have missiles, and they're probably just inside a bay, tucked away. That said, I don't think that you're going to be able to activate. I don't think you're going to be able to activate stealth mode on the fly like it is with the Stealth Annihilator or the Akula. Mainly because that would mean, how can I put this? That would conflict with the VTOL mode. Both of those, on the Hydra has VTOL mode, it uses right on the D-pad. Stealth on the Akula and the Annihilator also uses right on the D-pad. So they would kind of conflict with each other a bit, I think. It's possible, who knows? All just speculation on my part. Here we have an unlucky laser being blown up. Here is Winnie's. Here another laser is also being blown up. Which isn't really possible that they're both being done at the same time, which tells me there's some amount of staging going on here. Probably that was rigged to explode before this was even hit. Here we have our F-35, a more distant shot. Of course, it won't be called that in-game, but it is heavily based off that. And we can see it can do little stunts, but that is to be expected. I can't make out any missiles underneath it, but I'm sure they're in there. That might be the closest I'm going to get before the scene shifts. VGA. Now that made me laugh because I thought that sounded like the connector type you find on all computers. Probably unrelated to that. But what this is, probably just some unimportant markings. But I'm sure there's missiles in that. And there we go. Grand Theft Auto Online, San Andreas Mercenaries on the 13th of June. Again, if you want to see the trailer for yourself, playing properly, just go to this article. You'll find it up here. It was there. It isn't at the moment. I will also be live streaming when the update drops. I hope to be there the moment it's out. And, Well, as fast as my internet will allow. I've got pretty good internet these days, actually, so I should be there very quickly. I'll be testing what was or wasn't buffed or nerfed. I'll probably be looking at the new aircraft. I often like to test a lot of things that other YouTubers and content creators might not think to check. Oh, well, old vehicles that don't get a lot of attention, but it'll be going over a wide spectrum of stuff. And of course, I hope to be testing out the new vehicles and maybe the new missions and so on. But that will be on the 13th of June. In the meantime, if you want to watch some of my playthroughs or some of my other GTA videos, they will be in the end screen coming up about now.